I'm not gonna lie, y'all, it feels almost unreal that we're already to the time where I get to be making these videos. I don't know how we got here so quickly, but here we are. What's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel and to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my initial review of the new Demon Slayer Infinity Castle movie. This will be spoiler free, so if you have not gotten the chance to see it quite yet, don't worry, this video is safe for you to watch so you can get an idea on my thoughts on just kind of basic elements of the movie. I will be posting a very in-depth and spoilery review later next week, so be on the lookout for that. And a lot of people have thrown their opinions, both good and bad, out into the ether, so of course I am a Demon Slayer content creator essentially, so I might as well do it too. And for the sake of my organization and lack thereof inside my brain, I'm going to be splitting this into 5 parts. First, we'll talk about pacing and length, then we will talk about animation, then we will talk about voice acting, then we'll talk about OST, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. And keep in mind, this is going to be a very brief overview of my thoughts. I will be way more in depth later when I can talk about spoilers. But we're gonna dive right into it, but before we do, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment your thoughts. Have you seen the movie? Did you enjoy it? Let me know in the comments below. Also, don't forget, this month I have declared Demon Slayer month on my channel, which means all of my videos will be not only Demon Slayer related, I think they're all going to be related to the movie, so if that interests you at all and you are not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell so you get notified whenever I make a new video, and join in with me on the fun. But with that, we're going to dive right in, starting with pacing and length. Now I put these two together because I feel like this is actually the most common thing that I've seen complaints about is the pacing and the length. So I first want to talk about the length really quick. I have no issue. It is 2.5 hours long. I don't know about you guys. Maybe this is like the millennial in me that grew up watching fantasy movies. There were like 3 big franchises growing up that people watched, and that was Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and the Chronicles of Narnia. Now, it depended on how you were raised, which one was more the thing that you were into. Surprisingly for me, I was mostly into the Chronicles of Narnia. And those movies were literally designed for children. I mean, they were made by Disney, there was no blood, you could see people stab people and no blood would come out. And they were still like 2.5 hours long. Every single Harry Potter movie is over 2 hours. Every single Lord of the Rings movie, I mean, those are super long. And if you want to watch the director's cut, you're sitting there for 4 hours. To me, this is a completely normal movie length. I actually prefer movies to be longer than like under 2 hours. I feel like under 2 hours is just not enough time to really get into it and enjoy it. So I have no complaints about the length. And honestly, I see people complain that it's too long, so it just gets too repetitive. And I also disagree with that, just in the sense of if this were a series, I think people would dislike it more if we had to like get 20 minutes and then have some kind of cliffhanger, have to wait another week, and then get another 20 minutes, and then get a cliffhanger, and then have to wait another week for 12 weeks. I feel like getting it all into one sitting is way better. That's why people binge. I don't know, people complain about the length. I'm like, do you never binge TV shows? I do it all the time. I would much rather they get through as much as they did in one sitting than we're just like waiting for more, personally. Now let's talk about the pacing. I mentioned this in my vlog, but I'm just going to reiterate, I think they did a fantastic job at it. I feel like they did a very good job at intertwining all of the backstory moments with all of the action sequences. They flow really well to me, and every single backstory moment has meaning to the characters. Something that I don't think people realize as you head into this movie is that all 3 main fights, there is personal history between the demon and at least one of the slayers involved. So we as an audience are sitting there and we are experiencing these characters recall their past because this demon has done something to them in the past. So in order for us to fully understand the motives of the characters as they go through these battles, we have to layer in some backstory and some flashbacks in order to understand why this is such an emotional fight. Let's be so for real. Demon Slayer is not a story of good versus evil. It's a lot more than that. There's a lot more nuance to it. It's a very character-driven show. It's a very emotionally driven show. And Infinity Castle movie Part 1 really hones in on the fact that, yes, the action sequences, amazing. I'll talk about that more in animation in a moment. But these fights are so good because they're so emotional. It's huge for the characters, and I think that went over a lot of people's heads when they complain about the pacing. Can it be made into a TV series? Absolutely. There were definitely moments where I was like, oh yeah, they could end an episode right there. But I preferred the fact that it didn't end right there and we got to keep watching. Even the slower moments felt important, so I was still on the edge of my seat even though it slowed down. And it ebbed and flowed very well. And no, the backstory at the end was not 1/3 of the movie. It was not an hour long. It was roughly about 20 minutes of straight backstory and then another 20 minutes of backstory and switching back to the main battle at hand, and then backstory and then switching back and then backstory. And let me make something very clear. This backstory is very emotional, but it is very integral to the battle at hand. So it needs to happen and it needs to take time because we need to fully understand what the heck is going on here. That being said, there were still a few moments here and there where I felt like it got a little bit slow at times, very brief moments, nothing I really can complain about. I will give the pacing and length a 9.5 out of 10. What did I say was next? Oh, animation. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because we all know what I'm going to say about the animation. 10 out of 10, perfection. There was not one moment where I was like, oh, the animation kind of took a step back here. The first fight, beautiful. The second fight, stunning. I mean, there were some moments in the second fight where I was sitting there and I was like, this is too much for my eyes. My eyes are like, ah! And then the third fight, I think a lot of people share this opinion with me. It dethroned Tengen versus Gyutaro as the best fight so far in Demon Slayer, by a long shot, multiple times. The fight sequences were dynamic, they were colorful, the backdrop visuals were stunning at all times. The Infinity Castle was moving and dynamic when it needed to be. It did get stagnant at times during battles, however, I think they kind of had to do that in order for us to not get motion sickness, because I feel like if all of this movement is happening within the battle and then like the Infinity Castle started moving along with it, I would be like, whoa. But you can tell so much effort went into it. As always, Demon Slayer is a master class of animation. I feel like it's obvious that they were really saving up, they were storing up budgeting and probably animators and that sort of thing, and they put it all into this movie. Animation was 10 out of 10. I have no qualms with it at all. Let's talk about the voice acting. Now I'm gonna throw a quick disclaimer out there. I know a lot of you do watch the English dub, I do not. So whenever I'm referring to the voice acting, I am referring to the Japanese voice actors. If you exclusively watch the dub and you don't want to hear my thoughts on the sub voice acting, that's fine. You can just skip ahead to the next section. And wow, I am already a bit of a seiyuu connoisseur. I love watching interviews and stage events with them. It's a great way for me to work on studying my Japanese because it's something that I'm very into and I can get a lot of joy out of it. And boy, oh boy, just like the animators taking it up a notch, the voice actors took it up a notch. But surprisingly, I have to give the MVP award to Shinobu's voice actor. In fact, give that woman an Oscar. I don't care that like Oscars are usually for Hollywood actors. She did such an amazing job, she deserves an Oscar. Without getting into spoilers, she just goes through a very wide range of emotions and it was absolutely incredible. Now, I kind of knew going into this movie that her voice acting performance was going to be really good, just because when I posted about the new teaser that was released for Shinobu, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna watch this because I'm almost to the movie at this point. And so I posted on my community tab and people were like, don't watch it, it's important, like it has important moments in it. And I kind of got the sense that the voice acting performance from her was going to be absolutely incredible, and she still knocked it out of the park. Like, my expectations were here, and she was up here out of screen. Masterclass. Zenitsu's voice actor, also wonderful. He had to take on a very different side of Zenitsu in this fight, as you've seen from the end of the last season. He's very serious now, and he did it so well. His voice was not fully monotone, but it was quieter, but then when he got loud and was yelling, it was a very different yell than what we're used to from Zenitsu, and it was amazing. Hanai-san, Tanjiro's voice actor, As always, perfection, amazing. It's incredible. Gyu's voice actor did absolutely amazingly as well. There was one moment where he was like screaming and it sounded like he was literally, I don't even know how to describe it. I was like, could he talk after he did that? Because that was crazy. And that's Gyu, by the way. Personally, I think the voice acting of Demon Slayer is actually one of its greatest assets. I've always found the voice acting within Demon Slayer to be top notch, and all of the voice actors took it up another notch for this movie. 10 out of 10. Next, we'll talk about the soundtrack. Now, as a figure skater and someone who grew up in a musical family, I know soundtrack and music might not be as important to other people as it is to me, but it means a lot to me because it carries the weight of a lot of the story. Not to mention, like voice acting and animation, this is something that I don't know what they're going to do headed into it because manga does not have movement, music, or voice acting. I have spent the last few years, pretty much ever since I read this final fight that was in this movie, thinking about what the OST was gonna sound like, and it, of course, did not disappoint. I got full body chills at least 6 times during this film, and a lot of it was because of the music. It was just incredible. Movie soundtracks can make or break it sometimes because if the movie soundtrack is kind of lackluster, you don't get as into it as you can. And it's so good. It's bombastic. There's some times where they use organs. There's a lot of piano work. There's a lot of strings. Like, they knew what they were doing, and I had full faith in them, but it was incredible. I want to talk really quick, though, about the MA song and the Lisa song. So MA, it's pronounced MA. It's not Amer. It's not Eimer. I've literally listened to her live where she introduced herself as MA. She did the opening song, A World Where the Sun Never Rises. And the very beginning of the movie feels very, very fast-paced. Everyone's falling and shouting, and there's demons showing up, and it's very crazy. And oh my goodness, this song matched that theme so well. It's a very haunting and bombastic song. It's very fast, and it's like it's in a rush almost, and everything feels like it's in a rush, but it's in a rush in a good way, like it's supposed to be there. It's perfectly themed with everyone falling into the Infinity Castle, people running around, people doing quick fights with smaller demons. It's so well done. And then the Lisa song at the end, Shine in the Cruel Night, is much more hopeful. I don't want to get into why I like that theming because I don't want to spoil any of the battles in the movie, but it does feel like tides are changing. Like, okay, we're starting to feel hopeful, and this song gives us a very hopeful feeling. Very different from the Lisa song at the end of Mugen Train that really went along with the fact that Rengoku had just died, and it was like a funeral song. This one is much more, I don't want to say hopeful again, I want to use a different word, but that's the best word I can come up with. So no shocker here, OST and music, 10 out of 10. So my final thoughts. I know I couldn't go over a whole lot. It's really hard to talk about it, avoiding spoilers. So like I said, this is gonna be a quick video, and then my full review will probably be like 2 hours long. I'm gonna be so for real. But overall, this movie was absolutely fantastic. I saw it in IMAX yesterday, and good Lord, it was better than the first time. Like, I walked out of the theater last night feeling even more like, oh my gosh, that was a masterpiece than I did on Tuesday, the first time I saw it. And for me, it's probably partially because I knew more where it was going. I mean, I'm a manga reader, so I know where it's going, but knowing like how they're gonna set it up, how they're gonna pace it going into it, and I have this level of like calmness, I feel a little bit better. I can get more enjoyment out of it. I would say I cried 3 times and teared up an extra time outside of that, just like a little tiny bit. I feel like I was more, and I knew this movie is gonna make me cry the least of all 3, like without saying spoilers. The next 2 are gonna wreck me so much, it's crazy. But there's definitely still a lot of tear-jerking moments. I spent more time smiling and being on the edge of my seat and being like, ah, than I spent crying. But that'll be different for the other 2 movies, trust me. I think this movie felt like a full, cohesive piece, except for the fact that there is a couple of things that are left question mark. And I'm starting to see people complain about that, and then they'll admit they went into it not knowing it's a part of a trilogy. And please, please, please can we not go through another thing like the world tours where people weren't doing research before they went into it, and then they were all mad that there was recap in it. Now people are like, I didn't do research, and now I'm mad that it's a trilogy. And it's like, That's your own fault. I'm sorry, but that is your own fault. This movie is not designed to feel complete. There has to be some kind of hook to get you excited for the next one. It is the first of a 3-part trilogy. It is designed to not feel fully complete, but given the fact that it doesn't feel complete because there are some stories that are not tied up in it, they still did a very good job at making it feel like a full cohesive piece. To me, nothing felt like it was just back-to-back episodes like people said. It felt like a movie, but it felt like a movie that can be made into episodes easily. And I think that's what they were going for. Is it heavy on the backstory? Absolutely. It is very heavy on the backstory. But I argue if you don't like the backstory and you think that takes away from the story, why do you watch Demon Slayer? Like, I ask you that. Why do you watch Demon Slayer if you just despise the backstory? Because Demon Slayer has set itself up as a story that layers in backstories in the middle of battles since the very beginning. The demons get backstories, the Demon Slayers get backstories. If you've made it all the way to Infinity Castle and don't like that, I don't know how. It's an integral part of the story, arguably more important than the flashy animation because it started out as a manga that was about these like character-driven moments. It was never about the high intensity action sequences because those are very short in the manga. It has always been about the characters' emotions as they fight their foes. That's what the story is. And yes, sometimes backstories can feel like they drag on a little bit. Even I can say my preference is to keep backstories a little bit shorter than sometimes they are, but I have a full understanding that this is the way the story is built, and this is our time to really progress the character development that people argue there is none. I mean, you literally can't win. People are either going to complain that there's no story or they're going to complain that there's too much story. Like, at this point, like, again, why do you watch it? Every backstory moment had a lot of meaning, and I don't think they really needed to make it shorter than it was. So overall, I give the movie a 9.8 out of 10. In my spoilery review, I will discuss the reasons why it's not a perfect 10 out of 10. They're very, very small reasons, believe me. I'm obviously biased towards the story. I love Demon Slayer with my whole heart, obviously, and it means a lot to me, so I'm going to give it a high ranking. It would take a lot for me to give it like lower than a 9, honestly, and I just don't see that happening. So my hat's off to the animators, the voice actors, the directors, the storyboard artists, the musicians. Everyone involved did not only the best they could do, they took it up a notch, and it was absolutely amazing. Go see this movie in theaters. If you can afford it and you have the showings, see it in IMAX. The second time I watched it in IMAX was a far better experience than the first time I watched it because the big screen and the sound is better too in IMAX. It's incredible. But that is going to be it for today's initial thoughts. Again, I'm sorry I couldn't get into much detail. I will talk a lot more about details in my next video. But if you like this video, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment your thoughts. Also, if you want to support the channel, you can join my memberships. If you join at any tier, you get early release of videos as well as some fun emojis and badges. And I'll also be starting some members only live streams once I hit a certain number. So hit that join button below. But that's going to be it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later. Go enjoy this movie. Not today.